Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Glue Guys podcast, episode 12. People that have no sports knowledge would call this the Tom Brady episode. Real sports fans would call this the Olivier Giroud episode. All right. Um, Chad, why don't you talk to the people for a second?
Man, yeah, I'm doing good, guy. Well, actually, I lied. As a sports fan, this ain't been it this week. Wizards starting off 0-2, probably pretty predictable. That week's not the end of the world. Dallas coming off a loss in their last game.
Screw that. We had a bye.
Yeah, well, LSU with the loss last night. Real Madrid dropping El Clasico 4-0. So, not been the greatest sports weekend for me. But if anything, that means put the mortgage on the 49ers tonight. So, I don't know. We're recording this early on Sunday morning. So, maybe I can, jinx them into getting the reverse win, however that works.
Yeah, exactly. I got my first win for my legacy team yesterday, and then Texas also won an away ranked SEC game, which we all know is hard. So it definitely means the Cowboys are losing by 300 points tonight.
Yeah.
So,
and the fact that it's on Sunday Night Football kind of makes it more of a lockdown. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So we got a couple of things that we're going to hop into today. We have, I guess you could call it a culture topic, but it's really just a different sports topic at the end. We wanted to talk some potential January signings. And then I kind of wanted to talk to Chad about the old BCS system. We kind of brought it up in a previous episode pretty early, but I kind of wanted to dive into it because I've been doing a lot of reading on it lately. And I kind of just wanted to bring up how crazy it was, how weird it was, and just, maybe I guess how much I miss it is why I was thinking about it so much.
For those of you that don't know or haven't been able to tell, Ethan is using this podcast as his comeback player of the year platform for as a college football fan. So
yeah,
it's been a hell of a year so far. So
it's a lot easier to follow something when your team's actually good. And so since Texas is actually good for the first time since the BCS era, then now I'm all in. If we lose a second game, though, I'm never watching anything college football for the rest of the year.
It's amazing. It almost shows that I deserve more credit as an NBA guy, even though the Wizards are, I think, 15-69 over the last two seasons. So,
in what? Oh, this season and last season.
Yeah.
I thought it was like how he only played 84 games in 2 whole seasons.
Yeah. No. I wasn't gonna bore anyone with the year before that, where I was like, yeah, I think we won 32 games, but we were sneaky out. So I didn't want to give anyone that analysis.
All right, so let's start with some January signings predictions. So I was doing some research on this, and it's always hard. January is always hard because it's for the most part, the big clubs aren't doing big things. It's either big clubs getting older guys, vet guys, or getting guys that are at a weird club and in on loan, something strange like that. It's not a lot of times you don't see those huge moves unless, Chelsea is involved, when you see Enzo move to them and Mykhailo Mudryk move to them in January, stuff like that. Normally you don't see those huge moves, but, every once in a while we do get caught out by it. I was looking this morning at some rumors, some official rumors from real news sources, and some of the stuff I saw was just hilarious and just shows how little noise there is right now. I know we're still kind of 2 months out from January, but still you'd think there'd at least be some noise out right now. But some of the top headlines I saw, these were the top 3, not just 2 or not just 3 of the top ones, but the top 3 I saw was Nuri Sahin out.
Let's speak on that one just for a minute, because they lost to Real Madrid 5-2 in the Champions League after being up 2-0
at the interval. Yeah,
and then their response, and it's just so Dortmund. There's I think you and I are kind of similar in that I think there's a lot less when people are oh, that's just Dortmund being Dortmund. To me, there's a lot less of that than people actually. Your average Twitter person is going to think I know you'll probably agree with this one, but Spurs being Spurs, I don't know how much I fully believe in that type.
Although that's evolved into Arsenal being Arsenal every time they lose a game. So I don't know if you know this, but every single team that wins the league wins all 38 games.
Well, but I'll tell you this: tell me there wasn't a 4-year stretch where every time City lost in the Champions League, it was that's Pep being Pep.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
It didn't matter what the circumstances were. It didn't matter how many 0.98 expected goal chances
Raheem Sterling and Gabby Jesus missed. But,
Yeah, but
I mean,
like,
some of them are crazy though. It's like, yep, see, there go Liverpool again, not getting 98 points and beating City. They just don't got it in them. It's like,
yeah. No,
there
that's saying that is stupid.
There goes Klopp letting Pep win the league again, even though he had 101 points.
Yeah, I gotta say, I always struggle with the Klopp conversation because I teeter back and forth between is he overrated or underrated as a manager, because you look at it and it's like, well, he won one league title and then
one Champions League,
which is like really good. Like
think like 2 FA Cups and a League Cup, something like that.
Yeah. So when you start getting into that stuff, like it's already a different conversation.
That's the Carmelo gold medal.
It is. That's what I'm saying. You're like I heard, God, who was it? Obviously with the NBA back, the content has been just skyrocketing on TikTok. And they did a Chicago Bulls. It was Bulls players, and they were asking them for their Mount Rushmore, like of all time people. And it wasn't quite.
Asking actual players on the Bulls. Okay, not as bad as that guy that had Anthony Edwards on his Mount Rushmore.
Khalil Ware, shout out. He had the worst top 4 of all time. His was Anthony Edwards, Bam, Kobe, and I think Wilt Chamberlain. Which has got to be the craziest top 4, or the greatest Mount Rushmore of all time.
I mean, the Bam one is actually out of control because he's definitely had a better career, Anthony Edwards. But at least Anthony Edwards, you can be like, hey, well, he's like the hot guy right now. Like Bam is like, how did you even get that in there?
Well, I'll give Khalil Ware a pass on that one because he was literally just drafted by the Heat maybe 2 weeks before that TikTok was posted. So he's probably on some, oh my God. I'm teammate.
I got a dick eat, so he throws me the ball.
Well, yeah, exactly. Basically, so. But all the way back to Nuri Sahin. So they lose the Champions League to Real Madrid, which, by the way, the fashion that happened in, like, he just subs off attackers to bring on, to turn it into a back 5 in the 50th minute. And then it's like, you know where this is going. And then they turn around and yesterday lose to Augsburg. After going up in the 4th minute.
They're good.
1-0 in the 4th minute on Daniel Malin. Then they give up 2 and lose the game. So, it's just...
Oh, Daniel Malin, Arsenal legend. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, he's another guy who I like. Do I think this guy's good enough or not? I don't know.
I mean, just like kind of why one of my rules is if you're bald at 25, then you're not good. Just that's one of my rules. That's why Brian Mbuemo just can't crack it for me.
I'm glad you said, because I was thinking, like, God, I was thinking about someone who was in that exact same situation who I actually like, and that's exactly who it was. So, but...
Brian Mbuemo just comes across as like a mid-table merchant, where it's like, if he plays for a better club, then he's just not going to be, like, I guess like what Brennan Johnson is right now. It's like he might do good in spurts, or he might do good... in like ways where it's like, oh, this guy can kind of play, and then it's like, oh yeah, but he's not like a guy that's going to consistently get you 15 even goal contributions a year.
Yeah, but as we kind of talked about sporadically throughout both this podcast and our regular conversations, like to be that type of guy is a special player. You know,
15 playing for a top club if you're going to be a consistent starter is not like insane.
I mean, who's arguing that he's going to be a consistent starter for a top club? I don't think.
Well, you can play for Spurs or shit at this point, maybe even Man United with what their right wing situation has been over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I knew. I gotta say that's so hilarious you bring that up because I was dying laughing yesterday because I read like a tweet or something like that about Eric Ten Hag had to answer questions why he's only played Ahmed Diallo 3 minutes in the last 3 games. And I was like, seriously? Like there's no way Ahmed Diallo is at that level where you have to answer questions about why he's not playing for you guys.
We scored like a winner like the first few weeks of the season, or a big equalizer, something like that, like very early in the season. Obviously, he had that goal against Liverpool in the FA Cup.
Yeah. So which is
where he got sent off.
Career. Yeah, got sent off right after. It was like, got it. So
couldn't play in the big game against Coventry.
Long way to say Nuri Sahin. I agree with that 100%. I think he's like week to week with it.
So I saw Shaheen out, and then I saw Terzic to watch United and West Ham game ahead of being linked with both jobs.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because initially when you read Terzic to watch United West Ham game, depending on, and I don't want to say depending on where your ball knowledge is, but depending on where it is.
You think he's a West Ham candidate?
Well, no, I would think probably the more obvious one was him being a Man United candidate, but I just don't. I would find it really hard to believe that he could go to United, even with the status that they're in right now.
Well, it seems at this point they're kind of at like, I feel like they're probably like, well, Ten Hag was our risk guy. Like he was our up and coming guy that was at not a top 5 club, and he's accomplished stuff, but not like stuff. Like he hasn't won a Champions League. He hasn't won a top 5 league. So he was kind of their experiment. I feel like if it's Ten Hag out, it's going to be like, I mean, I don't know who that guy is, but it's going to have to be someone that has like won a Champions League or won like a Premier League or a Bundesliga, which again, I don't know who that guy doesn't exist. However, I think that they would just do something weird, like a Ragnick type thing where they're just like, hey, Ruud van Nistelrooy, you're going to manage the team until we find somebody. I don't know if he'd be down for that, but like turn into an Ole situation where it's just like, hey man, you had the team until the end of the season. Oh shit, you finished 5th? And you finished 5th and got to the FA Cup final? You're our guy. Meanwhile,
he's always going to have the slight bump because he's an ex-player too.
Yeah, the ex-player back to your club, as I know, and as you know, always makes it a little bit easier to support that guy. Although your guy has actually had legitimate success in that position.
Yeah, I was going to say a little bit easier to back Zidane when it's that 4th year after winning 3 straight Champions League.
Which is so weird because like Zidane becomes like such a mythical figure that it's like, not to say people don't pretend it didn't happen, but like these managerial jobs come up and they go and whatever, and people just kind of like mention his name, but they don't even. They're like, oh well, like an option could be Zidane for United, but no. Or Zidane could be an option for PSG, but no. It's like, what are we talking about?
I think that just has more to do with the fact that Zidane has kind of either openly or kind of informally suggested that there are really only 2 jobs he'll ever have.
The France job?
Yeah, that's Real Madrid or France. So, I don't
Which
know.
At this point, Deschamps is never going to leave, so.
Yeah, I don't know. He somehow ends up doing like just good enough to like keep it, because in the Euros I felt like he was on the way out, and it was like, well shit, they made the final or semifinal. They made the semifinal, and it was like, well, I mean, can we really get rid of him now? So I don't know, but yeah, I think if you had to draw up like a short list for United of like the guys that could feasibly be in that group that you were talking about, where look, it's almost impossible to get a coach who is a 100% guarantee, no doubt about it. Like Pep's not going there, and I would argue he's probably the only guy you could put in that category. So,
yeah, I mean, and even I don't know. To me, Man United is just a poison chalice, and I don't know what the solution is. I truly don't. But it's like, to me, it's just, I'm not gonna say that like forever, but just like for the foreseeable future, it's just like a poison chalice job where it's like you're either going to like at some point they're just going to have to swallow their pride and have like 2 legitimately bad years before they exactly come back.
They need to have either the Arsenal 2 straight 8th place finishes or the Chelsea 12th place finish, like something like that. Like the weird thing about United is, as long as they've been in turmoil, they've still found a way to get European football. Like, oh
Yeah, like the past two or three seasons, like it's been like, oh, this is their lowest points total ever, and they finished sixth. It's like
yeah,
I feel like they finished like 19th every year, but they're secretly fifth the entire time.
It's such a great point. So because they just need to have, because then that gives them just enough momentum to be like, man, we were sixth. We make a couple tweaks here, and then all of a sudden we're third, and things can break our way, and we get second. And maybe the team who's going to win the league has some injuries, and boom, now we're in the title race.
It's like those, or like the weird, like it's a 2-horse race, and then United finishes third, even though they were like 20 points behind second. Or like the year they finished second behind, I think it was Chelsea or City. No, I think it was City.
Like 19 points off.
Yeah, but it was like 20 points. Then it was like, man, if we just make these two signings, then we're going to be, title contenders next year. And it's like, as a guy that subscribed to that, when we finished second, when Leicester won the league, it was like, man, there's no way Leicester does this again. Arsenal makes 1 or 2 signings. We're next. And secretly,
there as fans, but
well, not you, but secretly, secretly, Arsenal only finished second because because Spurs had such a huge collapse like the last month of the season that we like hit our stride right as they were coming down, and so it was kind of like a convergence.
I mean, that's the iconic, I would say, modern version of the Spurs moment where they finished third in a 2-horse race.
Yeah,
that was the famous line.
That's the classic. Yeah, they lost. I mean, that was the year that Chelsea finished like 10th or whatever, and they lost to Chelsea at the Bridge to like lose the title. And it was like there's 4 games left.
Yeah, that was the game that made people think that Eden Hazard was immortal because he came on at halftime and like I think contributed to all 3 goals in the second half. Which overshadowed the fact that I think he had 10 goal contributions that entire season.
I was about to say 45 minutes. I mean, that's season defining right there. Getting a draw at home against Spurs.
I'm pretty sure Chelsea were shit that year too. Correct me if I'm
wrong. Yeah, they finished like 10th, I think.
Yeah, but it was like, him doing that.
This is why he's special.
Yeah, it's like, dude.
He's got 45 minutes in him in 38 games.
It's the equivalent of the Peyton Pritchard 30-point triple-double that he always gets in game 82 of the regular season when nobody cares. But I will say, just to go back to the Terzic thing, I think you bring up a great point with the West Ham part, because I think West Ham is the job that he legitimately could have. Was an assistant there under Moyes, I think, for like a year and a half or 2 years, a while back. So I think he's been around the club. He understands a lot of the players. I think he had a strong connection with a lot of those Eastern European guys that they were recruiting at the time.
Souček, Soufal.
Yeah, exactly. Which God bless Soufal if he has to keep starting it right back. I mean,
yeah, but kind of the same with managers. We talked about it with players a couple of times, but it's like it's just crazy the amount of managerial talent they're able to bring in the Premier League. Because you like see guys again managing Dortmund, managing whoever, and it's like, oh, who are they going to manage in the Premier League? Sure, Real Madrid, stuff like that. It's like, oh, who are they going to manage in the Premier League? Oh, Wolves. It's like, okay. Oh, who are they going to manage in the Premier League? Sure, like United. Oh no, he's going to manage West Ham, even though he was managing Real Madrid like 5 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, Nuno Espirito Santo's downfall from like Wolves when they were really good, Tottenham. Now I'm going to become the Forest coach. So
well, his was weird as hell because he had
the Saudi stop as well, which was crazy.
Yeah, that whole Wolves thing was just so weird because everyone kind of agreed that they were like the up and coming team, and then they just looked up one day and they were just like, all the players that got us here are still here, but they're just not that anymore.
That's 4 years later.
Yeah. And they weren't even old. It was like, oh, Diogo Jota was like the first one to truly leave, but it was like, we're still just like not going to be that good. Like Ruben Neves is going to turn into like a league average player. Joao Moutinho is just going to turn into a league average player.
Neves is the oldest 27-year-old, I think, in football history.
Well, that dude was captaining his Porto side at like 18 in the Champions League. I remember that because then I was like, I got to sign this dude on career mode. That was my stamp. That was my seal of approval as like a 15, 16-year-old soccer fan. It was like, if I'm signing you in career mode, it means you're going to be great. Like Zakaria Bakali.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, nowadays I'm signing George Ilicania on every time I open any football manager, new save or something like that. So,
Not Mikey Moore. Need a new right back. Need Archie Gray.
I get him on loan. I get Mikey Moore on loan pretty easily, depending on what club I'm managing. Not mad at it.
Yeah. And then actually the last headline that I saw was Gavin McKenna laughs off Calvin Phillips loan termination rumors or questions.
Scott McKenna.
Scott McKenna, not Gavin McKenna. Scott McKenna, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's...
Gavin McKenna's the player.
It actually is insane to think of how...
No, Gavin McKenna. Scott McKenna's the player.
No, Scott McKenna is 100% the Ipswich manager. No doubt about that. No, Kieran McKenna.
Kieran McKenna. That's what it was. Gavin McKenna's a hockey player.
Yeah, and Scott McKenna was a center half for Forest.
Forest, yeah. I was about to say, I know that name. I know it's not him. But Kieran McKenna, he's the up...
Copenhagen right now.
Yeah, he's the up-and-coming manager because he got like 2 points this year from winning positions.
Well, we know what this means. It means he's in contention for the Bayern job.
I actually saw someone say that the other day, and I laughed my ass off. And it's like, oh, dude, company's doing well. It's like, really? He's doing well with Kane and Sane and all those guys? Man, I wouldn't think that the best squad in the league would be able to win games in the Bundesliga. Man.
I got to say, I think Bayern is borderline... Like, and this is going to sound like insane when I say it, but I feel like it's borderline in that same tier as the United job. Just in the sense of, like, can you really win in that job? Like, obviously you can win games and you can even win trophies, but, like, I feel like because the bar is so high that, like, literally unless you're holding a treble, then it's like, I don't know, he didn't have that great of a season, and there's always going to be conflict between the hierarchy at the club and the manager. Like,
theirs is weird though. I feel like I don't even think theirs is like trophy based. Theirs is just like they kind of just look at the manager. Sometimes they're just like, I just don't like you. You can go. I mean, like Thomas Tuchel was legitimately good for them, and then they're just like, something about your face, man. I don't know. I just leave, please.
Tuchel was good for them.
Sorry. What's his face? Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann was legitimately good for them. And then, I mean, they went out. No, they were still in the Champions League when he got fired.
Yes.
They had won eight games in a row.
Yeah.
In the Champions League.
And I think allowed one goal in the Champions League that entire stretch.
Yeah, and then they were like, hey man, you can go. Like you skateboard to training, so therefore you can't be our boss. Even though you've won every game you've managed for us, you can go.
I'm pretty sure
we're going to bring in Vincent Kompany.
I'm almost positive he's like second in their career win percentage list. Like he is like the second highest win percentage of any Bayern coach ever. So it's no but that's exactly what it is. Like that's why I think that is the hardest. It is one of the hardest jobs because. Not only is it the football side, like the result side, but it's the political side of it too. Like
yes.
The thing with United, that job, you're almost borderline only going to get killed for the actual performance, the actual play, because a lot of times the ownership and the hierarchy take a lot of the beating. I feel like for like if they look like a joke of a club or something, it's like Ed Woodward's just letting them do whatever the hell they want. He's the most incompetent owner in the sport. All this other stuff. But at Bayern, and then also for whatever reason, Bayern, I've been on this for a bit, but I feel like their recruitment team is comically overrated. Like their transfer business is insanely overrated.
I think they get like the Bundesliga treatment. Is like everyone just assumes that Bundesliga teams are like a little bit smarter, a little bit more well informed, and then they kind of get that like because places like Dortmund and Leipzig, maybe not even as much now, but like. A couple years ago, especially, Yeah, like stuff like that. People are just like, oh yeah, those Germans, man, they know what they're doing when it comes to recruitment. And then it's like, yeah, Bayern, they signed Mazraoui. It's like, oh yeah, that was good.
Hey, I'll still defend Mazraoui.
I don't even think he's a bad player. I'm just saying like, oh well, they found this hidden gem. It's like, did they?
Yeah, he's 23.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
was playing at Ajax, so
Yeah.
how great can he be? No, I completely agree with that. Yeah, the Calvin Phillips loan though, I gotta say has been horrible at Ipswich. He doesn't look
Man,
like
play that record again.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is like, I mean,
It was literally 3 straight years of just that Calvin Phillips loan was awful.
2. Wait, right?
Didn't he go on loan the year before as well? Or am I making that up?
This is what it was. So 22-23, he was at City the entire year, even though he played 300 league
That's
games.
what it was.
And then in 23-24, he was with them for the first half of the season, literally played 90 minutes of football, then went on loan to West Ham and somehow only started 3 games, which has got to be the funniest shit of all time.
Wait, what were his numbers for 22, 20, or 23, 24 for City?
4. This is in the league, just in the league. 4 appearances, 93 minutes.
I was about to say, this dude Pep is somehow like, because if you look at like his just appearances, it's like, oh man, this dude actually kind of plays a little bit for City.
Yeah, but it's like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there.
Yeah, it's like he's got 31 appearances in a year and a half. That's actually not horrible, but it's just like 5-minute cameos. Yeah.
And then, so this year, he's actually played more. God, he started 6 games for Ipswich. I feel like all 6 of those games have just been awful. Like, look, I'm not watching Ipswich every single week, but I've watched the first 2 or 3 because I was kind of excited about what they were going to look like beginning of the season. You know, McKenna's getting all this buzz about could he go coach this team or that team. Let me see what he actually looks like. And he's just directly led to giving up goals many a times. So
I mean, they just can't finish games. Like, they will legitimately take leads. This dude, Liam Delap's like, I guess the best player in the world. I don't know. And then they always go up. Every single time I see that they lost 4-3, I'm like, I look at my phone and I'm like, okay, so they must have been up in this game. Same thing happened yesterday. I think they lost 3-2 or 4-3, something like that. I'm like, yeah, I was like, all right, they must have been up in this game. I click on it. It's like, yeah, they scored in the 4th minute. And then
they went up 2-0.
I say, and then they scored again. And then Brentford scored twice to equalize. Then Ipswich scores again. And then freaking Brentford. I'm like, Jesus, man. Like, these guys just are, which is what me and Chad said before the season. The way to not stay up is just to concede a shit ton of goals. And that's all they do. They go up 2-0, and then they concede 3 in a row. And then they score to equalize with 10 men in the 86th minute. Liam Delap, hey, da-da-da-da-da. And then Brian Mbeumo, 96th minute. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, I know. Hey, man, you can't stop the hair. You can't, or the only thing that can stop Mbeumo is the hair. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's just really, really funny, like seeing, because I don't even know, like promoted sides, like I don't even know what they're supposed to be anymore. Like they're kind of just straight up relegation fodder every single year now, and which is funny because like 3 years. Because 3 years ago, all 3 promoted sides stayed up. Ever since then, all 3 promoted sides have gone down.
Yeah, I mean,
2 years ago it happened, and then last year it happened. The Luton year it happened.
Yeah, no, I know for sure last year. I thought 2 years ago was the year all 3 had stayed up, but maybe, you know, I feel like in the beginning of the year I always get mixed up what was 2 years ago versus 3 years.
3,
ago,
yeah.
all that stuff. So. Yeah, it's tough, but I mean, we talked about it. It's like you just got to spend to even give yourself a chance, the way Forest did. And then I think the year they came up, the other 2 teams that came up with them were Fulham and
Bournemouth.
Fulham, and Fulham is weird because like you look at them, like if you only have followed for like the past like year or 2, you'd be like, man, how was Fulham a team that was like constantly getting relegated, coming back up, getting relegated, coming back up? But, you know, they've been able to build from the ground up in that situation. So,
yeah.
Talking about actually relegation, like staving off relegation, I'm going to talk about a couple of signings that I want to make. So Ethan and I kind of did this differently when we were talking about the transfer stuff. I think you looked at more direct rumors and stuff that you saw. me, I'm the cowboy of the operation, I guess. So I was just like, you know what? Let me find some guys that I think could fit some needs for teams. Doesn't have to be a rumor out there. Just shooting from the hip. And the club that I've been obsessed with the whole year has been Wolves. I called that they're in 19th. They have 2 points on the season.
They've scored 900 goals and conceded 1,000.
Yeah, I mean they've allowed 23 goals in 9 games from 15 expected.
Oh my god!
Which is like the most insane. They're like fourth for expected goals allowed, but goals allowed they're like miles beyond anybody else.
If you're someone that does not consistently watch soccer and you're looking for a team to just not even support but just watch every week, watch Wolves. Every single one of their games, it's like 6-2, 4-3.
I mean, you just made the case with Ipswich too. Like, if you just watch those two teams, you'd be like, man, Premier League scoring is awesome. All these games are so fun and exciting. It's like, don't watch a 0-0 Everton draw.
And Wolves also scores like the loudest 2 goals of all time, or like the loudest goal of all time. They'll create the 5 best chances of that match week and put one of them away. And it's just like, man, this Wolves team can really attack. And I'm like, Sharon Larson can play, by the way. I don't know if people know that, but that dude can legitimately play. But because
shout out Johnny Ryder. He was actually saying the same thing to me a couple weeks ago.
You can see like he can play. They have so many guys, especially in the attack. It's like, man, that guy can play. Man, there's some weeks where it's like, man, Sarabia is really actually good. Oh, Sharon Larson. Oh man, this dude Mateus Cunha, who might be the most unstoppable dribbler and people are going to think that I'm like being hyperbolic. He might be the most unstoppable dribbler I've ever seen in my entire life. Like this dude runs all the way back to the top of his box, picks it up, and then just like goes do. He's bouncing off people. He's about to fall the whole time, and then he'll toe it out for a throw in when he goes to take a shot. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man. And then he just kind of like looks up at the stands. He's like, I really just ran through 10 people just to come nowhere close to hitting the target.
Yeah, God, that's funny. So to save them, and so you bring up a great point with the attack. The attack is actually okay. Like the attack is, I mean, look, no one's sitting here saying it's great, but it's good enough to keep them up on its own. Like the attack part is. So we got to focus on the defense. I got him a center back and a goalkeeper because, as we just talked about, highlighted the post shot XG numbers are kind of shocking. Jose Sa has somehow a negative 4.5 post shot XG in 8 games. He's single-handedly selling a goal a game. Like single-handedly giving up a goal a game himself.
Which is so sad because not last season, but the season before, he was like the opposite. He was like the biggest overperformer of XG.
Yeah. So he could have been he's honestly mad that he wasn't in the Trick or Treat series.
He's been trying to get in ever since.
Yeah, he's making a hell of a case, so I'm not mad at him. And then Sam Johnson, who they signed on loan, or maybe they even got in on a permanent, is still at minus 1.5 in 5 games. So, like, 2 pretty horrible performances.
I was about to say, that's 5.5 goals just from goalkeepers before November.
Right, exactly. Like, less than 10 games into the season, or however many. So, goal number 1, get him a goalkeeper who has a decent post-shot XG. Goal number 2, find a guy who's cheap because let's be realistic. There's no way Wolves are going to be shelling out $20 million for a guy. So
Vlachodimos.
Well, I thought about him, but I concluded that Newcastle would have to take too big of a loss on it, and it would kind of cancel out the profit thing that they did when they sold Elliot Anderson. Who's been okay for Forest, and then bought in Vlachodimos. But I'm actually suggesting Matt Ryan, who not the shooter for the Pelicans, but the backup goalkeeper for Roma, who was at AZ Alkmaar for the last 2 seasons. Actually put up a positive post-shot XG both years. 32 years old. Look, he's not going to cost a fortune. You could probably get him on loan for 6 months because he's not playing. He hasn't made a single appearance yet for Roma.
Arsenal legend. He's going to the Arsenal Hall of Fame, Matt Ryan, for those 8 games he played for us.
I didn't even know he played for you guys. The only research that I did saw him at Brighton, and then Alzad Alkmaar, and then spent some time at Sociedad, even though he was horrible there. So, that's the best I could do. So
Sociedad's also kicking themselves for not being in the trick or treat list, just
yeah,
season to
theirs,
season.
theirs is more understandable though, because they just do good, get all their guys picked off by Arsenal, and then and then have to rebuild the squad. So it takes them like a year or two. That one's more understandable. But yeah, so Ryan, we've got for goalkeeper. Probably sounds like you don't have any real thoughts on that one. He's kind of just,
I mean, if you get a league average goalkeeper, I guess that's an improvement.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the thing. That's so much better than what they've had so far. So, and then for the center back, I'm gonna go with a rogue shout, Fabrizio Bruno, the 28-year-old center back playing for Flamengo. Was actually rumored to be going to West Ham in the summer, but he canceled the transfer himself because he thought Flamengo was going to be, I think, God, and Johnny, please don't kill me in the comments because I know you told me this story multiple times, but I think Flamengo was like competing for some sort of trophy, and he was like, "Nah, I want to stay," and then they ended up like falling apart, and now he's like begging to leave. So I think that could get done for a real low fee. He's 28. If you can get that done for between 10 and 12 million, I think that wouldn't be horrible. Kind of as a Craig Dawson alternative / replacement because somehow he's still played 8 games for them this season. And they're switching to that back 3 more, so like they need to have some center back stability there.
Well, the good news is they didn't have a really, really good center back playing for them last year that maybe could provide some leadership, maybe wear the armband, playing their back 3, be one of the most solid center backs outside of the top 6. Good thing they didn't have that on their books last year that they sold to a direct rival, basically, at this point for relegation. So I'm glad they didn't do that, Max Kilman.
Yeah, exactly. That's why when you look back at it, you look back at the teams who had the worst summer transfers. Wolves are 100% up there. They might even be number 1, as me and Euro expert both agreed on.
Nah, no one had a worse window than Arsenal.
No, that's not even true.
Sterling, I don't even know if he would start for the Bolton team that he scored against in the League Cup.
What about Calafiori? He's been a good signing. He's been fine.
He's been fine. He's been good, but Mikel Merino, he's been hurt. And I'm not. I don't know. Some people have already been wilding out. Like, see, Marino's not this and not that. Arteta playing 4 DMs. It's like you guys are. I'm not going to say the word, but like, can you just watch the game, please? Yeah, and not just look. Oh shoot! His FIFA card in FIFA 17 was defensive midfielder when he played for Dortmund. Man. Shut up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So getting some Wolf signings in there. I had an interesting find, I guess you could say, when I looked it up. Chad sent Chad a picture before we started of someone's FB ref page, which is basically like stats for different players. FB ref, like Football Reference, like if you've ever been on Basketball Reference or college football reference, which I've logged some time on.
Football Reference is amazing.
And so I sent these numbers to Chad. All right, this is a guy who's in the 99th percentile, a defender who's in the 99th percentile for assists, expected assists, shot creating actions, passes attempted, progressive passes, progressive carries, interceptions. He's in at least the 95th percentile in all of those categories. If you just look at his page, it's literally all green in all the categories that you would want. And so, Chad, who is that player?
Gosh, at first I was gonna guess a top level center back, but the way you just set it up, saying Wolves, I feel like maybe it's one of their guys. So
he's not in the league.
He's not in the Prem.
Mm-mm.
God, Jesus Vallejo.
He probably does have like three minutes, and he's put up those kind of numbers. Those are all per 90 minutes.
God. Okay, let me give a real answer. A center back with a crazy expected assist and some other stuff. Could you give me the league at least? Could I at least get a league, or would that
Eredivisie.
That doesn't count. Waro Hato.
It's a good guess, but it's going to make the team that he's associated with make a lot more sense. Okay. Olivier Boscagli to
Wolves.
No, not Wolves. To Brighton.
I don't know who this individual is.
Olivier Boscagli. Okay, so this dude getting it back into my FIFA career mode bag. Around FIFA 18, FIFA 19 time, this dude, I believe he's a 2000 birthday, and so he's still pretty young. But he's like,
but go on.
Is he actually?
November 97. He's turning 27 here soon.
Olivier Boscagli.
Yeah, plays for PSV Eindhoven.
I thought I just looked at him like 5 seconds ago, and I guess he gained 3 years in 20 minutes.
Yeah, so, this says right here, November 8th.
Oh, he's 26. Yeah, he's 26.
Yeah.
So.
God, this is a hell of an XG page or FB page.
Yeah, but either way, all right, still not old. And Brighton actually has a weird thing where they don't go all the time for like super young players. They'll go for like younger 20s into mid 20s players.
Because Mitoma's like 27. Now, I don't think anyone would guess that.
And people just assume that he's young because he plays for Brighton. I mean, even if you look at guys that they have like Danny Welbeck, like he doesn't play for them anymore, but like Pascal Gross as like their key players. I mean, their whole back line isn't young. Guys like Igor, guys like Lewis Dunk. So he kind of fits that. Yeah, he kind of fits that profile. He's a left-sided center back, undersized. Okay, yes. He's 5'11", which always curbed me from actually signing him in career mode. I'd see this guy that was like a 64 at 17 years old, and I was like, "Oh man, I want to sign this guy." But I was like, I refuse to sign a defender that's under 6 foot. But with Brighton's back, correct. With the Brighton's back three, I think it makes it not as bad. And also, it's like people like try to make the Premier League physical thing, and it's like it's more athletic than like true physical. Yeah. Like it's not like there's a whole bunch of bruising center forwards that are just these big, huge guys and hitting people all the time and this, that, and the other. It's not really that. It's just more like pace. It's pace and power type of stuff rather than just like these big bruising guys. Like it's more like Heung-min Son type of guys rather than just like a Chris Woods all throughout the league. And especially if you're playing in a back three, then that honestly could be more of better attributes if you have like a quicker guy that can progress the ball. He's good, obviously comfortable on the ball. He's good in possession. He can carry it forward on the dribble, or he can progress it. And this wasn't even filling a specific role for Brighton, but it just looked like, as I looked more and more into it, someone that Brighton would sign, sort of that left-sided center back that maybe even could step into a left back role if you really needed him to in a pinch, because they play wing back, so it's a little bit of a different role. But I mean, if Estupiñán's had his issues early in the season with availability, and so him kind of being able to go back and forth between those two positions, I think. And of course, you're going to have the doubters that are like, oh well, putting up those numbers in the Eredivisie for PSV isn't that impressive, which is true. I can see how that can be a concern, but Brighton really tends to like those guys. I mean, hell, they'll go to like the Swiss second division and be like, hey, this guy put up this many shot creating actions against creative players, and so we're going to buy him. So,
and the other thing is you've seen them dip into the Eredivisie market recently. Yankuba Mente, which I know they bought him from Newcastle, but he broke out on loan at can't remember if that was AZ Alkmaar or some other Eredivisie team. And then they bought Mats Wiefers as well from Feyenoord, who, I got to be honest, hasn't quite hit the ground running the way I expected him to, but I just, I still just put that down to kind of the step up in level that I think obviously the Premier League is compared to the Eredivisie. So you've seen them get into that market before. I think that makes sense. Also, I think Brighton, because they kind of masquerade between the back three and back four a lot of times, like they've played both systems a lot depending on the matchup. I think that's what kind of gives you some excitement maybe about the versatility, like you said, where it's a guy who clearly is comfortable enough on the ball to be able to perform at left back, maybe not fully have the athleticism or pace that you would want to play on the outside. But, depending on how they set it up, maybe he can be the more conservative of a back four, of the two outside backs. Because, on that right side, whether it's, who are they playing? Lamptey or Cody?
Hinshelwood.
Yeah, Hinshelwood, who, for whatever reason, Fabian Hurstler just loves Hinshelwood. Like, I have no idea.
Dude, for some reason, like, their past couple, like, him and, De Zerbi also was just like finding ways to put Hinshelwood on the pitch at the end of last year.
He was just shoehorning him in at left back like last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he played like 5 games at left back, and Hertzler has done the same thing. Like, hey, left back. The one game I actually saw him play at DM, which is like his natural position, I was like, shit, this dude's actually really good. I want to see him play here more.
Yeah.
But with the depth they have in midfield and kind of the lack of depth at outside back, I guess it kind of makes sense.
Scored a really good goal this year too. I think it was in a pretty big game. I think it was maybe against like Chelsea or something like that. United?
I remember the goal.
It was a header. It was a great finish.
Yeah.
Who else were you thinking as far as January signings?
Yeah, the only other club I'll talk about, because I know we got some other topics to get onto, is Real Madrid. Now, obviously, we just talked about, and I've refrained from doing a lot of Homer segments in this series so far. So give me my moment. Lose 4-0 at home to Barcelona. Everything is falling down. Club's collapsing. Whatever. I loved Ancelotti after the game, where he was kind enough to remind us the last time we lost 4-0 to Barcelona, we won the league and Champions League that season. So, hey, if that's what ends up happening, I'm not mad at it. But I still think there's some work to do. And one of those things is just continuing to rebuild the defense, right? I think the depth in the center back spots is not necessarily because you look on paper and you're like, oh, you got Militao, you got Rudiger, and you got Alaba coming back. But it's like, when is Alaba coming back? No one knows. As you said, you're not the biggest Alaba at center back fan. I think it's going to be really scary now to see what he looks like, because he'll have lost probably a decent bit of athleticism from what he had previously, which, as you talked about, when you're a 5'11 center back, the margins are already very thin. So if you don't have that peak athleticism, then that just makes it way more difficult.
Yeah, going this summer without the Nacho replacement was an interesting move from you guys.
It's crazy, right? Because like you look at Nacho. Nacho's been a meme the entire time he was at Real Madrid, but then you look at it and it's like, man, Nacho was actually borderline important for a while. So I'm gonna look to find that Nacho replacement, basically. And I've got
It's not Jesus Vallejo.
No, that was the great part, was before the season they were like saying Jesus Vallejo was going to be the third center back until Alaba came back, and I was like, there is no way in hell they're playing him at all at center back unless Tchouaméni is also hurt, and then at the time Carvajal, because they used him as like an emergency center back at times too. So
Jesus Vallejo, also a Wolves legend, but let's hear the 3-man short list for his replacement.
Yeah, so we've talked about this with Arsenal, but Real Madrid, I think, are in the same boat of like, it's hard to find a depth piece, because like you have to find that guy who's actually good enough to help improve the team.
But it's like you're never going to play unless Rudiger and Militao are hurt.
Yeah, exactly. A guy who's not necessarily going to come in and be like, all right, I need to start every single game or I'm going to get pissed in 6 months.
Which has to be said is a lot easier to do for Real Madrid than basically any other club in the world.
Very fair. Very fair. I mean, just look at Lunin. This dude's been here for like 100 years somehow as the backup. And it's like, all right, I'm cool. Even look at Vallejo. I look at Vallejo. Dude's 27 and has had like half a season as a starter in his career at Wolves.
Keep getting him checks.
Yeah, exactly, right? So the 3-man shortlist I've come up with, all kind of big names. First one, the guy who I would want the most, Antonio Silva, center back from Benfica, 21 years old. I think the funny thing about him is you could probably get him on somewhat of a cut price for him. Over the summer, there were talks about him going to maybe PSG, Manchester City. We're looking at him, Liverpool. And there was somewhere in the range of like 80 million, 75 million euros, which obviously is a lot of money. But when you're a club like Real Madrid, if that's the only signing you're making, then, it's not out of the realm of possibility at all. I do think though you could maybe get him for closer to that 60 to 55 ish range because he's only started 6 to 10 games under Bruno Lage this season. Lage prefers Otamendi and Araujo as a center back pairing, which is really weird to me. But hey, we talked about the disaster that he's been before at previous stops. So
I was about to say this is just the Wolves episode, I guess. Bruno Lage.
It is. It really is. We've talked about the whole history of the club here in like the last 20 minutes. So, Silva, I think, and the thing is, I should have probably said this at the top, but the two main attributes I'm looking for in these guys, someone who can pass, because we don't have a center back that can really pass. Like, it's funny. I feel like Rudiger, when he was at Chelsea, was like getting praised for his passing ability and stuff. Like, he can play a decent clipped-in long ball once in a while, but as far as just like a sideline to sideline type of passer and all that stuff as a precision passer, I just don't think he's there.
Even like playing between lines, like breaking lines, playing line splitting, like 30, 40-yard passes on the ground into forward speed.
And he can make progressive carries with the ball too. So like, look, he's fine, but at the same time, I just want someone who I know is going to be super comfortable on the ball. And then the second thing is someone who's athletic, right? Because when you're playing for a really good team, there are going to be a lot of numbers pressed forward. You're going to have to defend in wide areas and cover a lot of spaces. And ideally, whoever this person is going to be like a long-term Militao partner, which does help on the athleticism factor because Militao, while he's not the greatest decision maker, the dude is one of the most athletic center backs, I would say, in Europe. So, yeah. Silva, the first name, hoping you could get him for 50 to 60. Costello Luqueba from RB Leipzig, 22-year-old center back. I tell you what's funny, all three of the guys I have weirdly have a birthday in the next month. So I didn't even do that on purpose, but that's hilarious. The concerning thing with him, he just signed a contract extension that threw in a 90 million euro release clause into his deal. And I don't think Leipzig are going to be in a hurry to sell for less than that, especially because crazily enough, they're like in the Bundesliga title race right now, like very heavily. I think they're
first
place right now. Yeah. And Bayern, they have a game in hand over Bayern, so Bayern fans don't freak out if there are any of you. But yeah, so I think he would be really hard to get out of there, but that'd be like a really good signing as well. And then the third guy, probably the most realistic to get in January just because of the club problems, and we talked about this club actually for a second earlier, that'd be Nico Schlotterbeck out of Borussia Dortmund. Passing-wise, he is 100% there. I still have some worries and some concerns about his athleticism / defending in space, but passing-wise, I think he really has it. And with the kind of upside-down thing that Dortmund's been doing this year, like, they could get to a point in January where they're just like, all right, we got to scrap this and kind of build the next project, right? They went in on getting these early to mid 20s guys in the Schlotterbeck, Nicolas Sula, even when they signed Füllkrug, like these are more guys who were like, we're ready to win now. Yeah, we're ready to win now. Could they be going to more of a, all right, we need to go back to the youth movement, something like that? Maybe sell a guy, fund some smaller transfers. Could that be Schlotterbeck? I don't know. I think you could get him for maybe 50 million.
You guys still in the Lenny Euro sweepstakes or?
Well, hey, look, he's looked real good for United so far, so we've clearly missed him. That's also the thing. Like Madrid have somehow taken this hard stance of like, we're only paying
what you're worth.
It's kind of Bill Belichick like, right, with the Pats, where it was like, hey, I have an idea of what you're worth to us, And if it's $1 over what we think you're worth, then we're just not going to even entertain it.
Yeah.
So that's probably the reason why none of these signings will actually happen. Like I said, unless you can get Silva on a cut price, but yeah, it's a complicated. It looks great on the balance sheet. Balance sheet looks amazing, but then when you look at the depth of the squad, it's like maybe we should have overpaid for a couple of bench guys. So.
I don't know. I think it gives you a lot of power in the long term because, like especially when players start getting involved of being like, I'm not training until I get my Real Madrid move or this, that, or the other. Like I heard Madrid's in for me. I want to go. And they start upsetting.
That's kind of what Euro did. And I mean, I guess the reason why it didn't happen is because ultimately no one could match United's desperation. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. So looking at that Real Madrid center back, I think Olivier Buscaglia would be good for you guys. He obviously has the passing ability.
He does. He clearly does.
Yeah. But yeah, I think those are all good options and options that. So what I think, I don't know if it's a media thing or something, but it just seems like there's a strange lack of like top tier defensive talent that is young, if that makes sense. It seems like there were times where there was like multiple 18, 19, 20-year-olds defenders where it was like, he's going to be the next guy. This guy's the next this. Even like in the recent past, you've had guys like Benoit Badiashile, who was like playing every week in Ligue 1 at like 17, 18 years old and doing really well. Guys like William Saliba playing every minute in Ligue 1 at 17, 18 years old and doing really well. Gvardiol playing at a very young, not as young, but still like 19, 20 years old. Like yeah.
Upamecano.
Yes. Upamecano, Konate, and Mukiele, like all coming through at similar times as like late teenagers, very early 20s, like being guys that were just like, these guys are the next guys. And it just seems like there's no guys that is like right now, you say like those young upcoming defenders like this guy. I mean, even Linioro, honestly, and again, I'm not a continental football guy. I like to watch my Premier League, but like literally the first time I heard his name was when he was getting linked with Madrid and United. And as again, that's probably partly my ignorance, but also it's like I feel like his name wasn't in those conversations until his name was in those conversations.
No, that's fair. I'm not going to completely disagree with you. I do think that there are some guys out there, though, that are kind of in that next group. I think Hato, the Ajax center half.
I think he's always going to be disadvantaged because of his size.
Yeah, but like you kind of talked about a minute ago, like, I don't know if you have the athlete. Like, to me, that's the thing that that Lisandro Martinez has shown. Now, granted, injury-wise, health-wise, he hasn't been the best. But if you have a certain level of everything else in your game, then the size part is not going to be as big of a factor. Like, you can say maybe he hasn't been good, maybe this, that, but I don't think it's been because of his size that he hasn't been good at certain points. I think it's just been injury has been the number one thing, and then just, I don't know, the fact that United have kind of been a mess would probably be the second part. So I think Hato is a really good, up and comer. Mm-hmm. I think Giorgio Scalvini is a guy who's
I've seen Scalvini play like twice, and I was vehemently impressed.
Yeah, as in like
super impressed. I was super impressed.
Sorry, I was just confused because you were just saying how. And granted, he's 20, so he's not like that's.
Oh, even when he was like 8, even when he was like 18, he was like.
Yeah,
an everyday player for Atalanta.
That's the thing. He's injured right now, but I feel like he could move next summer, and then whatever big club he could go to, he could be like an automatic starter.
Yeah.
Like, immediately. So I think there are some guys coming up, but no, you're right. There's not like that one name that, has been kind of a tradition for like the past 6-7 years.
Well, even like those super young guys that are like playing for some either big club or a club that's like going deep in Champions Leagues and stuff like that. It felt like Matthias de Ligt when it was like, man, look at this kid that's captaining Ajax at like 18, 19 years old and getting to a Europa League final and then getting to like a Champions League semifinal in about a year or two time span. Like he's clearly going to be like he's already at a certain level. He's clearly going to be. I don't know. Maybe it's just nostalgia taking over. Or I'm getting a little bit more mature in my thoughts. So I'm like, I'm not. If you want to crown him, then crown there. I mean, obviously there's like Lamine Yamal, so I guess.
Yeah.
And of course Ethan Nwaneri.
The way people, because I think Delict and Upamecano have kind of been like the two that have been like stand out as the center back prospect. Like the way people talked about those two when they were 18, 19, like is definitely a different level than what we're talking about guys right now. So I see exactly what you're saying.
They kind of have that physical aspect too, where they were both brick shit houses when they were like 18.
That's what made them super appealing, because I think that's the thing that always is like, oh, how developed are they at the center back spot at that such a young age? And I mean, Upamecano was like a physical monster. That was the crazy thing about him. He was like a physical monster who could also pass like crazy, and now he's like just
a bot.
Who's a dumbass.
Yeah.
So
that's me and Chad's biggest meme is like, hey man, Byron just got ran by on the transition. Guess who was the primary defender?
Nah, I gotta be honest. I think Kim is worse. Like Kim is significantly worse. So I guess it's scary when Diot is your number one center back, but hey, I don't think he's been horrible. And I'll guarantee you this: when he moves to PSG in 2 years, people are gonna lose their minds of how good of a move it is. So they'll always have that.
So I wanted to get into some old college football stuff. Yeah. I think I'm going to save that for next week, though. I think we're going to move on.
We've already been going for an hour.
I say, because I know if I start on that, then I'm going to go forever. So so there's, again, Bill Simmons is a guy that we take a lot of inspiration from. And one of the things that he does, or used to do a lot, especially, was like guys that you haven't given up on. And it's like, basically the idea is like, hey, it's not, me and Chad kind of looked at it a little bit differently, but from my perspective, it was like, guys, it's like maybe their career isn't over, but like their career's over. And so it's like, guys, it's like
the equivalent of Brandon Knight when you're trending with RIP and you're still alive.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's over. Like, I haven't given up. I still think Gerard Deulofeu is going to be like a really good player. It's like, hey man, he's 33. It's like, I know, but I think one day he's still going to like have that move or have that moment when it's clearly not true. So we kind of put together lists. I have 5 guys. Do you have 5 guys?
Kinda-ish. I have somewhere between 5 and 7.
Yeah. So we kind of have like a short list of guys. That's like guys we haven't given up on. I believe you thought about it a little differently, though. Why don't you tell everybody what kind of your take on the topic was?
Yeah, so mine, I think Ethan kind of laid it out where he's looking at guys that are probably a lot closer to the end, like truly to the end of their careers or whatever. To me, I'm more so looking at like guys' reclamation projects, guys who in their current situation, a lot of people aren't huge fans of, but I'm like, man, if you just give this guy a move, or if this guy, gets a trade to a different team or whatever, like I could actually see him legitimately becoming something again. So yeah, I think maybe, a bit kind of the combination between satire versus actually kind of believing it is kind of a blurred line in this situation. But a lot of mine, I feel like I actually genuinely believe in. So I don't know.
Yeah. So why don't you start us off then?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. By the way, I think you mentioned it, but this is cross sports. So I kind of stuck to football, basketball, and soccer with mine.
Same.
My big 3. So perfect. I'm going to start off with the only football player that I have on my list. And this has kind of been a guy we've talked about infrequently, or not even infrequently. We've kind of mentioned him over the last couple episodes. And that's Daniel Jones. I know this is.
Hey man, I'm with you on that. Like I see all the stats about how he hasn't thrown a touchdown at home in 30 games or whatever. I'm like, hey man, I'm not out.
Yeah, and look, this isn't the week. It's hard. This is another one of those where it's a fine line to walk, because you have to feel that so many people are out on him that he's in that period where like you're the only one kind of still in on him, but then you also have to see enough where it's like, all right, but I still actually do believe in him for some reason,
right?
So it's kind of a difficult position to be in, but honestly, you could say this is the perfect time for Jones because he's coming off his worst game of the season by far against Philly, 14-21 for 99 yards. On the season, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. But I'm telling you, he had that 3-game stretch. The Washington game, the 2 games, 3 out of 4 games. Washington on the road, he looked good. Cleveland on the road, he looked really good. Dallas at home, he was horrible. But then Seattle on the road, he was good again. So good in 3 road games in a row. Like, I don't feel like that's, I would say by accident, but I mean, then you could just kind of counter, like, all right, well, why is he, like, probably 100 games under 500 for his career? But I think he's the classic example of, at the end of this year, he's probably going to get cut by the Giants, barring some miraculous playoff appearance or whatever. He's going to get cut. He's going to go to another team. He's going to be the backup for like a year. And then at the start of, free agency the next year, there's going to be all this buzz of, man, I tell you who was great in the quarterback rooms was Daniel Jones. He was great in the quarterback rooms for Kansas City. Him and Mahomes, they were spitballing ideas off each other. No one knew the offense better than Daniel Jones. All the stupid shit that people make up and try and hype guys up about. But I think it'll be legitimate for him, and then he'll kind of get that chance to start somewhere probably in that 2026 season. So this is a long-term play for sure. But I think Jones, 2026, 2027, if he's starting to peak again, just please come back to this podcast. Get the clicks up.
Yeah, man. I'm not giving up on Daniel Jones either. And there's, like Chad was kind of saying, like, there's not a lot of evidence, like a ton of evidence that he's actually good. But I don't know. I just think his team has been truly horrible. Yeah. And I'm not, this isn't me sitting here like Justin, like Daniel Jones is like secretly really good. But it's just like, I just don't think he's like the worst quarterback of all time, like his reputation says he is.
I think he can be a competent starter.
Yeah.
A competent starter for a team.
Exactly. I love that. So I have a guy that kind of touches, I'll start with my football guy too. This kind of touches on what you were talking about, or what we were talking about earlier about, a little college football. Kind of wanted to talk about it. So let's get into a college football guy that made it to the NFL. I'm not giving up on him yet.
That's a good start.
And that's my guy, receiver, Justin Blackmon. Man, as a young Texas fan in like 2010, 2011, 2012 type of range, it was just like sad seeing Justin Blackmon just like be that guy year after year in the Big 12. I mean, I have his stats up here in 2010 and 2011. So in 2010, this dude in 12 games has 111 catches. So he's just under 10 catches a game, 1,700 receiving yards, and 20 touchdowns in 2010. Follows that up the next year with 122 catches in 13 games. So again, just under 10 catches a game, 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns. And it was like, by far, this dude is the best receiver in the class. Like, go on.
This was in that era where it was like right after Crabtree, then Blackmon was like the next guy after. And it was like, damn, is there just a rule that the Big 12 just has to put out the most illegal receivers of all time?
Well, especially then, they didn't play defense.
Yeah, that helped.
I mean,
thought that helped a lot.
I mean, Oklahoma was winning every single week, 63-56. So it was like,
yeah, exactly.
But he went to, so this dude was 2-time Biletnikoff winner, which is receiver of the year in college football, 2-time unanimous All-American, 2-time All Big 12, offensive player of the year in the Big 12, all that kind of stuff. I truly don't know how he didn't get like a sneaky Heisman bid, like at least like make the ceremony.
Short list.
Yeah, like I don't really know. Well, hey, actually, I might be vindicated. In 2024, he was inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame. So,
Nice.
But anyway,
I gotta be honest, that's actually surprising.
Exactly. But he goes to the Jags, who, let me see, let me double check.
What's crazy is he was actually decent. He was actually good on Jacksonville too.
Let's see, Jacksonville Jaguars. Who do you think was throwing him passes that year?
2012, 2013. So this was whoever they got. So this was whoever was playing quarterback leading up to when they got Bortles Star Galactica. So Chad Henne.
Chad Henne and Blaine Gabbert.
Nice.
Yeah.
I should have gotten the Blaine Gabbert.
Which is really the best 1-2 punch of all time. Like having Big Blaine, which Blaine might
Reggie Bush of the NFL.
Blaine Gabbert actually is like raging at his computer right now that he didn't make my list for guys I haven't given up on, because when he was coming out of Mizzou, I was in on Blaine Gabbert, man. Any Big 12 quarterback putting up numbers, I was in on him. I was in on him. I was in on Graham Harrell. I was in on Brandon Whedon, talking about Oklahoma State.
30-year-old.
I mean, Cowboys legend to be fair, but like.
I'll tell you, Blaine Gabbert, I feel like legitimized his NFL career when on one episode of like, it was like the sound, like the mic'd up or whatever.
Was he the whoa, mother? Dude, that's like a 2-yard run, runs out of bounds, almost gets murdered. Whoa.
That is the funniest video of all time.
No, it's not.
Well, all right, not the funniest of all time, but it's in.
Not even the funniest mic'd up NFL moment. I mean, the two that really stand out to me is the Matt Ryan.
Oh yeah. No, there's one funnier than that. The funniest.
Well, the Gronk stand up to me is the funniest one personally. Gronk's in a 3-point stance, and then Brady's under center. He's like, Gronk, stand up.
Yeah. Matt Ryan is the get set. No, the funny thing is, I just thought about it. Gabbert's not even the funniest Jag. I don't know if you remember.
Bortles?
No, there was a Jags Steelers playoff game. Le'Veon Bell made a cut inside.
Oh.
I think that was Marcel Darius. It was actually really good.
And then he comes off and talks to like his 80-year-old D-line coach. He's like, he just broke my ankles. He's like, what? He's like, oh, he left my ankles out there. You know, like when someone breaks, you say you break your ankles? I'm like, bro. This dude's explaining breaking ankles to like an 80-year-old dude on the sideline.
I know. Well, between that dude and that Cleveland Browns offensive line coach from
Hard Knocks.
Yeah. We won World War I and II doing jumping jacks, push-ups, and sit-ups.
None of this stretching stuff.
So those two guys might be in the Hall of Fame of incompetent coaches. But yeah, Blaine Gabbert clearly has a legacy, so I don't know. Maybe you're vindicated by
that. So Justin Blackmon, really enjoyed his work. And then I guess I'll just go back to back with both my football guys. Tebow, man, I just can't wrap my mind around. I was talking to one of my coworkers recently. I was talking about Tebow, and then the conversation shifted to Mark Sanchez. And it's like, I just don't understand these guys. It's like, yeah, you got us to the playoffs and we won a game or two, or, for Mark Sanchez, back-to-back AFC championship games. But it's like, yeah, you're never going to start again. And like in Tebow's case, it's like, yeah, you're never playing the NFL again, buddy. Thanks for getting us to the second round of the playoffs, but you're done.
I gotta be honest. I think Tebow's is slightly more legitimate than.
Well, his was like 40% completion percentage, like awful, like legitimately horrible.
And it was literally not even like a full season. He had like a half a season run where it was like, all right, got him into the playoffs. Like that year in Denver, he only started 11 games. He wasn't even like the full-time starter. And
to be fair, they did get Peyton Manning the next year.
Yeah. I was gonna say you bury the lead a bit because they did go out and get one of the best quarterbacks of all time. So,
who then broke the touchdown record for a season next year,
and they won the Super Bowl a couple years after that. So you can't say that it wasn't justified to move on from Tebow to get Manning. But to your point, though,
at least somebody,
no one else, yeah. Like we see these shitty teams, like the current version of Jackson or of Carolina, wasn't like, which probably was Jacksonville, I'm sure at the time,
or the Browns or someone just being like, oh, why not? Right. Let's just have him start for a year, see if he can make a play. Maybe we can run just a college offense.
Yeah, if not, he can lead us to 1-15, and we can get the pick that we really want.
Yeah,
the real quarterback. So now that is weird. Tebow, I just feel like, and it obviously eventually showed, but he just never had the accuracy.
He couldn't throw for anything. But I'm saying, but like I saw a TikTok the other day and was talking about like guys that were kind of done by the time they were drafted in. It's like now we see like weird offenses all the time in the NFL, and we see guys like Jaden Daniels able to be unlocked. I mean, in the past at least, guys like Kyler Murray able to be unlocked in certain offenses. But whereas at that time, like 2012 range, it was just like, nope, got to be a pocket passer, got to be a guy that drops back, reads the defense, makes the good throws, has an 80% completion percentage. If you can't do that, can't play NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was John Gruden who said this or someone was like talking about John Gruden and said it, but they were talking about how in today's NFL, it's you have to mold the offense around the quarterback. When back in the day, it was you had to mold
the quarterback
to the offense. So, and I think that's completely right because there are so many times where I think of like, you know, some of these older guys, some of these college guys that we watched growing up where I'm like, what really is the difference between, you know, what a Kyler Murray is versus, you know,
Troy Smith,
Pat White or something like that. Yeah, like one of those, a true dual threat guy who you knew as soon as his college career was over, he just wasn't going to be anything in the NFL.
Yeah,
so,
as a young kid, that always used to blow my mind. It's like, oh, this guy won the Heisman Trophy. He's about to go be like the best player in the NFL. Oh, wait, he didn't get drafted? And he's playing the CFL now?
I tell you, that realism NFL was a harder hit than finding out Santa Claus wasn't real. Like, that stuff was crazy.
Even it was like every position, too. It was like, oh, Manti Te'o, he almost just won the Heisman. He's about to be the best linebacker in the NFL. Oh, wait, he's like a rotation backer for the Chargers and the Saints, and what's going on?
No, it was. I mean, you look at I think the slot receiver guy, like scat back type, is almost the
playmaker.
Yeah,
the Percy Harvin.
I mean, shit. Tavon Austin got drafted 6th to play that role. So
Trendon Holiday.
Come on, dude. He might be next up on this list for me.
Did you just say one of your football guys, or did you get all of them out?
Well, yeah, that was the only football guy I had.
All right, why don't we do our soccer guys? I got this shirt for our soccer guys.
Hey, I did. Number 1 on my list, this guy was like the first name I wrote down when we were doing this whole exercise. Mason Mount.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because I think, you know, look, last 2 seasons, he's just been
non-existent
with injuries. Yeah, and the part that sucks is you could really see it in those early Chelsea years that, like, man, if this dude keeps playing minutes like this, like, he's going to have a hard time making it to his late 20s. You know, as a player, I mean, not living. Because at 20 years old, he played 2,900 league minutes, and then at 21 years old, played 3,000 league minutes for Chelsea back-to-back years, which at that age, playing at the Premier League that many minutes is very tough on a developing body still. So it's led to some other injury, maybe not directly led, but I think has led to him maybe not being able to heal as quickly, come back as explosive from injuries just because of the amount of wear and tear he's had over the past couple of years. But I still thought, like, when I watched him in those first 2 games this season for United, was he creating chances? No. Was he scoring goals? No. Was he making assists? Absolutely not. But what he was doing was still pressing and running just all over the field, which I think is something that is a calling card for him and has been his entire career of, if nothing else, you know this guy is going to press the ball and is going to create transition opportunities for your team, both attacking and defensive wise, or is going to stop, you know, chances for the other team in defensive transition and can help create transition opportunities for you as an attack. So I still feel like there's a role for him in that space, but God, you know, the United signing almost never made sense to begin with because it was like the Kai Havertz Arsenal signing or what it was, you know, ideally supposed to be at first with like, oh man, he's going to be our floating 8 and he's going to be a guy who's like, he does the defensive work of a midfielder because he can run around, but he's almost like having another attacker out there. And it's like, guess what? Him and Casemiro in a double pivot just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we saw that in the beginning of the 23-24 season. And then this year, he almost basically was playing like as a false nine in the first couple games of the year. So I think that was kind of an admittance from Ten Hag that, like, hey, we misprofiled this guy. I still would love to see him when he gets healthy. I'd love to see him get some minutes on the right wing. You know, we've talked about United just not having anything on the right wing right this year. I wouldn't mind seeing him there. You know, he played there a decent amount for Chelsea, especially under Tuchel. Different position, kind of. They were more in that 3-4-3. This is more of a 4-2-3-1. But still, I just feel like there's still a player in there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Mason Mount is a guy that I kind of didn't like because he played for Chelsea.
Yeah.
And but then when he would, I don't know, I started sort of developed a soft spot for him, especially because of his style of play. Like you said, the pressing.
Breaking news, by the way. This is following up on a point from earlier. No Amad Diallo in the starting 11 for United. Was a real tweet from Fabrizio Romano.
What are they going to do?
So, I don't know. Probably forfeit.
Probably forfeit. Hey, but good news though. They have they do have Casemiro starting. So
and Cliff Livingston.
Jesus. I mean, this midfield for West Ham, Alvarez, Rodriguez, Soler.
Yeah, no, that's atrocious.
Oh, yeah, but
and more so the Rodriguez Soler part. I still like Alvarez. But.
Soler. I'm out on Alvarez. I saw him play for Mexico like 3 years ago, and he was ass. And I'm just like, I've just been out on him ever since. I don't like lanky defensive midfielders that are 6'3" and can kind of move.
Fair enough.
But
fair enough.
Did you have another soccer guy, or was it just Mount?
I did, and this was kind of two. It's two guys, but I'll mention them quickly because they're kind of the reason people are giving up on them is the same reason. Gonzalo Ramos and Randall Colomwani. For whatever reason, Luis Enrique was like was put on earth to not play a number 9. Like that was like the entire reason he became a manager. Was like, all right, you know what?
Nah, I think it was Suarez's fault. I think Suarez. It was like, hey man, you're not Luis Suarez. You can't play up front for me.
Fair. Yeah, that's true. He was too spoiled. He was too spoiled at first. So I mean, like they're playing like Lee Kang-in and Marco Asensio as like a false 9 this year, and it's like, what the fuck? You spent like $150 million on these two guys.
Don't talk about Kang and Lee.
He's fine as a winger or even as like a number 10 midfielder, but I don't want him playing as a false 9 for me. And then there's conversations of, man, why can't PSG score? I wonder.
Barcola.
Ramos has been injured this year to start this season, and then Colomwani he doesn't play him. And the thing about Colomwani is he's still getting into that France side as like a starter or like first guy off the bench almost every game.
That's classic France.
So, yeah, that is
just starting guys that don't even play for their club.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, Giroud had that run for a good bit, but that's the thing. I actually see it where it makes sense, and they're both different types of guys, which is weird that neither one of them can find a spot in the team. Ramos is more that drop off number 9, can get involved in link up play. You know, actually a really good presser. And can create for others. Colomwani is more of that, like, you know, playing right on the shoulder / you know, winger even sometimes, and can go out wide, dribble past guys, you know, and uses pace, physicality, both really great pressers. So I just don't understand why Enrique can't play either one of them. It's hard to criticize his time at PSG because I think it's actually been really good even during this transition period. But, like, I would like to see one or both of those guys kind of get a move. They were both kind of linked with Atletico over the summer before they went in for Alvarez, and I was like kind of secretly hoping it didn't happen as a Madrid fan. But yeah, so I need to see a change of scenery for at least one or both of those guys.
Yeah, let's see again the interesting difference in the way we're viewing it for us. But my two soccer players I picked are both still active players. So I guess I'm kind of more going into the Chad.
Nice. I've won you over.
Yeah, I'm dipping into that market. This guy, near and dear to your heart, actually. In 2018-19, this guy had 17 goals and 5 assists in the Bundesliga as a 20-year-old, scored 10 goals and had an assist in the Europa League that year, and then got a big move to Real Madrid.
Chelsea. Oh, Luka Jovic.
Luka Jovic. It's just like Luka Jovic was doing things that were actually borderline a crime in that season. Like I think he scored 5 in one like Europa League game or something like that.
I remember that.
And one of them was like a bicycle kick from like 17, 18 yards out, where it wasn't even like he just like threw his foot at it and it just smacked into the top bins. And I was like, yeah, this is the greatest player of all time. Again, this is someone I was already pretty fond of through things like career mode, because he was like a 16, 17-year-old playing for Benfica. So I was like, man, this guy must be pretty good. He made his Red Star debut at 15. So yeah, like this was one of the guys that I kind of had on my own mental radar just through career mode for a long time. Not claiming that like I discovered him, but just, I was aware of him just because
like that's what you're saying.
I was just aware of him because he was like one of those young guys on career mode. But then he really exploded. He had 9 goals and assists in his first Bundesliga season as an 18, 19-year-old, which is pretty good. Then he exploded the next year, really came on strong with those 22 goal involvements in the league, and then 11 in Europe. Got that Real Madrid move, and it's not even just Madrid, but he hasn't been good at anywhere since. His highest goal and assist numbers in the league since then it looks like Fiorentina he had 9 2 years ago. So he had 6 goals and 3 assists. Last season for AC Milan, he had 6 goals and an assist, and he doesn't get into the Serbia team. Like, it's just a lot of.
Well, they secretly have a lot of depth at number 9.
No, their striking core is actually outrageous. Like, they're trying to find ways to put like Vlahovic, Jovic, and Mitrovic all on the pitch at the same time, and it just doesn't. And they also, what's his face is also Serbian. The Wolves guy that they had last year. Kalajic is also Serbian. So, yeah, they have weird depth at center forward, but he's not really a part of that. So far in Serie A, he's played 3 games, 79 minutes, no goals, no assists. 1 shot creating action is his only real attacking stat. And he hasn't scored or really done anything for Serbia this year either. So it's been a lot of just like nothing for him ever since that Real Madrid move, and I can't really blame them for it, because it's like there's no way he was going to get in ahead of Benzema, especially what Benzema became while he was at the club when he went on like Ballon d'Or winner type of level.
Those were like, it's so weird. Those were literally the years where Benzema was like about to enter his prime. Was right when they signed Jovic. So.
Which that was around the time that Ronaldo left, and kind of the theory it was like it's Ronaldo. And then Bale is really good. And then Benzema is just kind of like there, facilitating, being around it. He's a good player, but he's not like that guy. And so probably the theory was like, now we'll get in like the guy that's supposed to be like the guy. Luka Jovic, you put him around all this talent that we still have, young talent. That's around the time like Vinny's coming in and Rodrigo's coming in and putting up like 5 goal involvements. But it's like, shit, this guy can really play. And it's like maybe that was supposed to be like the new young front line was like Jovic, Rodrigo, Vinny. And then obviously 2 out of those 3 has worked out. And the third is Luka Jovic. And then my last soccer guy, this is a guy that's truly near and dear to my heart, because this is the first. And when I say the first, like this is the first like young player that I was ever akin to as a soccer fan. No, God, no. Even I didn't get wrapped up in that Pace Merchants PR early in my life. But this is like the first guy that I really saw, and I was like, man, this is a kid, and he's like really, really good. This is like when you're a young kid, and you're like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna play in the Bundesliga when I'm 17 and do stuff that this guy's doing. The reason he came to my mind is because when I texted you the other day, I was at a pizza joint on Friday night. For some reason, had up the 2014 World Cup final, and I saw this guy's shining moment of his career, and that'd be Mario Götze. Again, he made his Made his Bundesliga debut in the 09-10 season, played a couple games, didn't start, only played 47 minutes. And then the next year, as a 17 and 18, no, as an 18-year-old, put up 33 games, 29 starts, 17 goal involvements as an 18-year-old in the Bundesliga. It dropped the next year to only 9, but I mean, still as a 19-year-old playing for Dortmund, he had injuries that year. They won the league both of those years, by the way, over Bayern,
which is crazy. Which is so crazy.
And then his last year at Dortmund as a 20-year-old, he put up 10 and 10, which, as me and Chad said, just in the league, as me and Chad talked about, I think 2 weeks ago or last week, like how rare it is for any attacker to put up 10 and 10 on it with any type of consistent basis. And now he's putting up 10 and 10 as a 20-year-old attacking midfield player. This is when 10 still existed. I was explaining this to Savannah the other day. It's like, this is when the number 10 position was like a true position, when everyone in the world was playing 4-2-3-1. Had Ozil, had Götze, had guys like
James Rodriguez.
Probably
a little before him, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, but around that same time, like that was when like the 10 position was. I mean, that was what people thought Marco Asensio was going to be for Real Madrid in the future, and then the position just disappeared overnight because Pep basically outlawed it. But yeah, Mario Götze, man. Then he got that Bayern move. He had a lot better first year than I think people remember. 10 goals, 8 assists in the league. And it's like he's not even playing a ton. He's 27 games, only 20 starts, and he's putting up those kind of numbers. But it was kind of seen as like, oh, he's just getting, acclimated into the team. Next year's going to be his year. And then the goal involvement just went down and down and down. Moved back to Dortmund, had that like metabolic issue. Actually had I guess 2018-19 was just the year of the Bundesliga, because 18-19 had a little bit of a resurgence with 7-7 in the league and only 19 starts, 26 appearances. So he's still been a good player. I mean, you can't look at his career and say he's been a bust overall, but based on what he was supposed to be, like if you would have asked someone in 2012, you say who at the end of their careers, who will have had a better career, Mesut Ozil or Mario Götze? And this is after Mesut Ozil has already played for Real Madrid and been a great young player in the Bundesliga and about to get his move to Arsenal. I'd probably say a majority of people would say Mario Götze at the end of his career is going to be better, and it's not even particularly close. Like I said, his shining moment was that 2014 World Cup goal, and that was when he was 22. And that was basically the pinnacle of his career.
Damn.
Coming out and playing like false nine.
That's a really good one. I tell you this, though, he's actually decently fun on career mode. I had an Eintracht Frankfurt one a couple years ago. And he was actually a cheat code in Football Manager last year for whatever reason. Dude was like a guaranteed 20 goal involvement.
There we go.
Playing as a number 8.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah, which is kind of what he's doing now for Frankfurt.
Yeah, because again, the 10 position doesn't exist.
Well, also a midfielder in the Bundesliga doesn't exist either. It's basically just an attacker that's just
a little deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So who is your basketball? Do you have one guy, two guys?
I'm gonna stick with one. I'm gonna stick with one guy for basketball just because I kind of threw in like 3 for soccer. The NBA guy, and this one kind of falls
on you.
Kind of in between. I mean, I know I'm the only person left on this island, so this one I kind of enjoy. I'm the only one left on James Harden Island.
That's an insane shout. A guy that's won the MVP and all the All-NBAs. Yeah. It's like, I haven't given up on him. But that's the literal definition of I haven't given up on him. Like everyone else has. Everyone else is like, this guy's a bum. This guy's this guy's that. He's fat. But you haven't given up on him.
Yeah, he hasn't made the All-NBA since 2020. He hasn't been an All-NBA performer.
Well, that checks out because that's when he moved to Brooklyn.
Yeah, his Brooklyn, or his last year in Houston, his last full year in Houston was the last time he made All-NBA.
Yeah, because then he sat out half the season he sat out to get the Brooklyn move, and then he was hurt, and they were not winning a lot and stuff like that, so...
Very good. Very good. Look at you. Ball knowledge. But yeah, so all that was kind of going on. It just made the back half of his career has just been complicated because you look at his basketball reference and it's like the way they break it down is it'll be like, let's say someone played for two teams in a season. It'll say like the season total, and then it'll
Their
say
stats
the
for each
totals
team,
for the
yeah.
two teams below. The last 5 years of his career, the number of columns or rows is just as much as the first like 7 or 8 years when he was just OKC 3 years, then Houston for like 7.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he has
He's going to play for every team, I think.
well, I mean, 2 straight years, 2 years now with the Clippers is kind of been a record for him. If he finishes this season as a Clipper, that's longer. I mean, Brooklyn a year and a half, Philly a year and a half, Houston, like you said, played those 8 games in 2020, 2021.
I cannot believe that he was in Philly for a year and a half. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I know, right?
In my mind, he was there for like 13 games.
Even Brooklyn being there for a year and a half, it was like, was he there for more than 10 minutes? So, like, but at the same time, like, he's never not been a super talented guy at any point of that run.
Yeah.
Like, and the crazy thing is he's been over 10 assists a game pretty much this entire part of this run. So he's transformed from like a guy who was guaranteed 30 to 35 points a game for like 3 straight years. And then he went on from being that to now all of a sudden he's like this distributor, point guard, playmaker, creator. I like the role that he's in on the Clippers. He has the ball every single possession, just like it was in Houston.
Wait, he doesn't have to give it to Kawhi?
Well, yeah, that's a great thing. Kawhi being in a sweatsuit means more shots for Harden. So I'm actually buying Harden stock. And as I've said to multiple people before the season, I think the Clippers are going to be a lot more frisky than people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, I mean, that's always fun when like the guys like, well, also a lot of times that is just like, I'm tired of talking about this guy. I'm tired of saying his name.
Yeah,
I'm tired of.
That's a lot more of it too.
Yeah,
that's for sure a lot.
But you haven't not given up on him. I mean, it's a lot of a powerful stance because I mean, it's hard to do that sometimes when guys are like, oh, well, this guy's kind of past. It's like, no, it's just that you don't think about him anymore because you want to talk about the young and exciting guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So my last guy, I kind of just wanted to shoehorn his name in because I was just thinking this guy came to my mind. And then I was like, I mean, it's not that I didn't give up on him because I was never truly in on him, but I was just stunned by his impact, I guess. And that was Greg Oden. And I'm like, I was thinking about it, and I was like, is Greg Oden the last guy that was like a legitimate post-up, rim-protecting center that people would think this guy's going to be generational?
That's a hell of a question.
Because I think, because like you think of number one overall picks. If we look up number one overall picks since then, since 07, you're going down the line and you're seeing Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, John Wall, Kyrie, Anthony Davis, Anthony Bennett, Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, Ben Simmons, Fultz, Ayton, Zion, Anthony Edwards, Cade, Paolo, Wembanyama, and then the guy who I still haven't even tried to pronounce his name, Risa Share. Yeah. And there's really only in that there's maybe 2 centers, 3 centers, and the only one that's really a true like actual center like that plays like what we would think is Ayton. Like, and Karl Anthony Towns is now like a spot up shooter, I guess. And then Anthony Davis, the whole reason why people thought, and no one thought he was going to be generational, but they thought he was going to be very good. And then Anthony Davis, the whole idea of him being generational was that because he wasn't just a post-up guy, he could handle it. He could 100%. Be out on the perimeter. And it's just like, because you look at the picks before Greg Oden, Bargnani, center, Bogut, center, Dwight Howard, center, Yao Ming, center, Kwame Brown. And it's like, he was like, you can literally see the inflection point of like, do we want a post-up rim protecting guy to we want a shot creator that can create shots for himself and everybody else?
Yeah, no, I think in the epitome of that was probably Olo Candy when he went first, and
Mm-hmm.
not even like obviously he was horrible. I mean, not horrible because he ended up playing for a decent amount of time, but like no one really knew who the pick was going to be, and that was in the era of all
Just
right, well,
pick the
the
biggest
default
guy.
is yeah, pick the best big man available. Like that's just your default pick, and
Which even
like
then,
you
how
said,
can a guy from Pacific end up being that?
yeah. Well, Elgin Baylor was in charge of the pick, so that's how it happened, and it was the Clippers. So, but no, you're absolutely right. Like I mean, that's a great. That's honestly like that. You can't even have an opinion off of that. That's just a straight up fact. Odin was the last one of those guys to go one, and like you said, every center since then has been like the reason they're that number one pick is because of all the face up stuff they can do.
Yeah, and it was like I know I kind of like shit canned the category up, but it just kind of stood out to me. I was just like, I mean, because it's a guy that people wanted to succeed and knew probably would have been really good if he wouldn't have gotten hurt, but he just got hurt, and so it's like, I mean, even like when he was playing for Miami, like you listen back to like those Birdmesters
People
back from
talking about, oh man,
yeah, like oh man, like he had. Hey, I'll tell you what, he played 10 minutes the other day, and he had 4 points and 7 rebounds. It's like,
yeah. Well, the crazy thing is he was actually good in Portland. Like he was good. He just was never healthy. You know, he was. I mean, 9 and 7. You know, with 2 blocks a game in his Portland career, which doesn't sound amazing, but when you're talking about a guy who was 21 in that time, just coming off of a microscopic knee issue, and then was going to have more knee issues in the future, like that was like a small light hope of light, I guess, for Portland at the time, where you could have been like, all right, I guess you can see it, and then injuries just it never happened.
yeah, and I think the 2014 draft kind of like really shows the effects of that inflection point because you have a guy like Joel Embiid in that draft, and then along with
Yep.
Jabari Parker and Andrew Wiggins, and then Joel Embiid, since he was a center and he had gotten hurt before, it kind of defaulted to, yep,
Yeah.
see, here we go, another big guy that gets hurt, and we don't value that as much as Maple Jordan
100%.
or like or whatever Jabari Parker was supposed to be, which
Young Mello, baby Mello. That was exactly his comp.
he averaged 21 year.
Jabbar, oh yeah, no, he scored. He scored for sure.
Well,
He didn't do anything else.
oh, I didn't know he was a Washington legend. How the hell did he not start for you guys and average 15 in half a season?
Well, that was the Otto Porter. We traded Otto Porter for, I think it was Parker and Bobby Portis. So
Hey, I love me some Bobby Portis.
exactly, we were like the lynch. We were like the jumping off point of the success of Portis's career.
Yeah, so I was just like infatuated by that Greg Oden sort of inflection point. I just wanted to bring it up quickly.
Oh, that's great.
So
That's honestly great.
so yeah, we got in really two main topics, kind of just doing some overall soccer talk and kind of framing it around the January transfer window, and then some guys we didn't give up on. Maybe doing a little bit of nostalgia trip for you guys. That's like, man, I haven't heard that name in a while, or I remember that guy.
The Blackman poll was amazing right there.
Yeah, I think we both had some good ones, and Chad kind of took it in a more interesting route where it's like guys that are still playing in games that he still feels like can make a positive impact on teams, even if everyone else doesn't think they can. So got a good mix in that second category. So we actually went a little bit longer than we normally do, which I'm happy with. I think we had a lot to talk about this week, which is always fun.
Absolutely.
But please let us know in the comments what you want us to do. Maybe we, just throwing out some maybe potential ideas, maybe like some early NBA overreactions, or talking about that BCS topic that we're maybe going to do today. So just let us know what you guys think about today's episode, about how things have been going. Does there need to be a format change? Do you guys like the longer form episodes? Do you like it when we're kind of freestyling or when we're more structured? Just anything you guys have, please let us know. We've really been enjoying it. I love all the interaction I get with you guys out of it. And yeah, we'll see you for number 13, the Brock Purdy episode.